Deep in the rainforests of Siberut Island, where modern infrastructure has never reached, the Sakuddei people have mastered something most of us take for granted. They've survived for centuries without a single plastic bottle, without pipes, without filtration systems. Their water is cleaner than what comes from many city taps. How? The answer lies in knowledge passed down through generations, knowledge we're only beginning to understand. Welcome back to our channel, where we explore indigenous wisdom that challenges everything we think we know about survival. I'm your guide into these hidden worlds, and today, we're uncovering water secrets from one of Indonesia's most isolated communities. The Sakuddei don't just collect water, they've developed a complete system that would make modern engineers pause. No electricity. No chemicals. Just bamboo, leaves, and generations of observation. By the end of this journey, you'll see water differently. You'll understand why their methods might hold answers for our future. But here's what surprised me most: their purification technique involves something you'd never expect. Stay with me, we'll reveal that in a few minutes. First, let's understand who we're learning from. The Sakuddei are an indigenous group living on Siberut Island, part of the Mentawai archipelago off Sumatra's west coast. They're among Indonesia's most traditional communities, living in near-complete harmony with the rainforest that surrounds them. Their population is small. Estimates suggest only a few hundred individuals maintain the truly traditional lifestyle today. Siberut Island receives massive rainfall. We're talking up to 4,000 millimeters annually. That's over 13 feet of rain. You'd think water would be the easiest resource here. But here's the problem: all that rain creates another challenge. It floods the forest floor, mixes with decomposing vegetation, and can carry contaminants. Rivers run fast and muddy during storms. The Sakuddei can't turn on a tap. They can't order bottled water. They can't boil water using electric kettles or modern stoves. Fire management in a rainforest requires careful knowledge. Every drop they drink must be collected thoughtfully and treated naturally. So they've developed three distinct systems: rainwater harvesting, spring water collection, and stream water purification. Each method serves different needs, different seasons, different situations. Let me take you through each one, starting with the most elegant solution I've encountered. Let's start with their rainwater collection, a system so simple it feels obvious once you see it, yet so refined it took generations to perfect. The Sakuddei use bamboo. But not just any bamboo, and not in the way you might imagine. They select mature bamboo stalks, usually species like Giganticloa that grow thick and tall. The diameter matters: too narrow and the flow is restricted, too wide and structural issues arise. They're looking for segments about 10 to 15 centimeters across. Here's the genius part: bamboo naturally grows in segments separated by nodes, those ring-like barriers inside the stalk. The Sakuddei carefully remove selected nodes to create a continuous channel, essentially transforming the bamboo into a natural pipe. One end is angled and positioned to catch rainwater flowing off the sloped roof of their uma, their traditional communal longhouses. These roofs are thatched with palm leaves arranged to channel water efficiently. But collecting the water is only half the solution. What about purification? This is where that unexpected element I mentioned comes in, and it's hiding inside the bamboo itself. Inside each bamboo collection system, the Sakuddei create a layered filter using only materials from the forest. Think of it as their version of a modern multi-stage filtration system, except it's completely biodegradable. The first layer consists of carefully selected leaves. Not random leaves, specific species known for their filtering properties. These leaves catch larger particles, insects, and debris. Next comes a layer of crushed charcoal. Yes, charcoal, and this is the unexpected element. The Sakuddei discovered centuries ago what scientists only confirmed recently: activated charcoal absorbs impurities, toxins, and even some bacteria. They create this charcoal by slowly burning specific hardwoods in low oxygen conditions, then crushing the result into small pieces. The third layer uses fine sand gathered from certain riverbanks where the granules are naturally smooth and uniform. This sand acts as a mechanical filter, catching tiny particles the charcoal mist. Finally, at the bottom, they sometimes add small, smooth river stones to prevent the sand from washing through when water flows quickly. Water enters from the top, passes through each layer, and emerges from the bottom noticeably clearer. The entire filter sits inside a bamboo segment, held in place by carefully positioned sticks or natural wedges. Now, rainwater collection works brilliantly during wet seasons. But what about dry periods? This is where the Sakuddei's deep knowledge of their territory becomes crucial. They've mapped every spring, every seep, every reliable water source within their ranging area, knowledge held in memory, passed through stories and direct teaching. These aren't marked on any modern map. They're marked in the landscape itself through observation. The Sakuddei recognize spring water by signs invisible to outsiders, certain plant species that only grow where groundwater is near the surface, subtle changes in soil color, the sound of water moving underground. When they locate a spring, they don't dig aggressively or redirect the flow. Instead, they work with it. Using bamboo again, they create what we might call a spring box, a collection chamber that allows the spring to flow naturally while providing a clean access point. They'll carefully arrange stones around the spring opening to prevent soil from washing in, then position bamboo tubes to guide the water into collection vessels. Have you ever found a natural spring? What did you notice about the water? Drop your experience in the comments. I'm curious how these sources appear in different parts of the world. Sometimes, neither rainwater nor spring water is accessible. Maybe you're traveling through the forest. Maybe the season has been unusually dry. The Sakuddei have a solution for this too, treating water from streams and rivers. This process is more involved because river water carries more sediment, more organic material, more potential contaminants. The first step is selection. Not all sections of a river are equal. The Sakuddei preferentially collect from faster-flowing sections where water has been naturally oxygenated and where sediment has less chance to settle. They avoid areas downstream from animal paths or where decomposing vegetation collects. Once they've collected the water in bamboo containers, they let it settle. Patience here is key. Gravity does the first round of work as heavier particles sink to the bottom over several hours. They'll carefully decant the clearer water from the top into another container, leaving the sediment behind. Then comes filtering through their charcoal sand system, similar to what we discussed earlier but sometimes with additional layers depending on water quality. For water they're particularly uncertain about, they add one more step. This final step connects to something their ancestors observed about sunlight, a discovery that modern science validated only in recent decades. We'll get to that in just a moment. Here's that sunlight connection. The Sakuddei practice what modern science calls SODIs, solar disinfection. They've known for generations that water left in clear containers under strong sunlight becomes safer to drink. They fill sections of bamboo, chosen for their lighter, more translucent walls, with filtered water and place them in direct sunlight for most of a day. The UV radiation from the sun damages bacteria, viruses, and parasites, rendering them harmless. The process works best when the water is already relatively clear, which is why filtering comes first. Modern studies have confirmed SODIs can eliminate up to 99.9% of harmful microorganisms when done correctly. The Sakuddei don't know the scientific percentages, but they know it works, centuries of evidence in their continued health. This technique costs nothing. It requires no chemicals, no fuel, no technology beyond the sun itself. In regions where waterborne disease is a constant threat, this knowledge is literally life-saving. Think about that. While we ship plastic bottles across continents, while we install energy-intensive purification plants, the Sakuddei have been using the sun as their disinfectant all along. How do you think this traditional knowledge could be applied in disaster relief situations or remote communities today? Share your thoughts below. Collection and purification are only part of the story. Storage matters just as much. Contamination can happen after treatment if water isn't handled properly. The Sakuddei store water in sealed bamboo segments or in containers made from gourds and specific tree barks that naturally resist bacterial growth. These containers are kept in cool, shaded areas of their often suspended off the ground to keep them away from soil contact and crawling insects. They practice what we'd call first in, first out. Older water is used before newer collection, preventing stagnation. Containers are regularly cleaned using abrasive plant fibers and rinsed thoroughly. Nothing sits unused long enough to become a breeding ground for bacteria. Daily water collection is often a communal activity, especially among women and older children. This isn't just practical, it's educational. Knowledge transfer happens through participation. A grandmother doesn't lecture about water sources, she brings her grandchildren along and shows them. They learn to read the forest, recognize the plants, understand the seasons. So what can we learn from the Sakuddei's water wisdom? More than you might think. First, simplicity works. We've complicated water access to the point where billions depend on infrastructure that can fail. The Sakuddei's methods require no spare parts, no supply chains, no electricity grids. In a world facing climate instability and infrastructure challenges, that resilience matters. Second, natural materials can be surprisingly effective. Bamboo, charcoal, sand, these aren't primitive substitutes for modern materials. They're legitimate solutions that work remarkably well, and they're completely renewable and biodegradable. Third, local knowledge is invaluable. The Sakuddei don't use a one-size-fits-all approach. They've adapted their techniques to their specific environment, their specific challenges. That kind of nuanced, place-based knowledge is what we often lose in standardized modern approaches. But here's the uncomfortable question we need to ask: are we at risk of losing this knowledge forever? And if we do, what exactly will we have lost? The Sakuddei face pressures familiar to indigenous communities worldwide. Younger generations are drawn to modern conveniences. Outside economic pressures encroach on their territory. Logging threatens the forests that provide their materials. As the traditional lifestyle fades, so does the knowledge embedded within it. Water collection techniques aren't written in books. They're demonstrated, practiced, refined through experience. When an elder passes without teaching the next generation, entire libraries of practical wisdom disappear. Organizations are working to document this knowledge, but documentation alone isn't enough. The real preservation happens when communities can maintain their way of life by choice, when traditional knowledge is valued rather than dismissed as outdated. We're not just talking about interesting anthropological facts. We're talking about solutions, proven, sustainable, effective solutions to challenges our modern world still struggles with. The Sakuddei have shown us that clean water doesn't require plastic, doesn't require industrial infrastructure, doesn't require dependence on distant supply chains. It requires knowledge, attention, and respect for natural systems. Their methods might seem simple, but simplicity is exactly what we need more of: solutions that work with nature instead of against it, that empower communities instead of creating dependencies. So here's what I want you to do. First, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're continuing this series on indigenous wisdom with equally fascinating communities. Second, leave a comment answering this: if you could learn one traditional survival skill from an indigenous culture, what would it be and why? I read every comment and your answers often shape future videos. Third, share this video with someone who thinks sustainability is a modern invention. Let's spread this knowledge. The Sakuddei have been sustainable for centuries. Maybe it's time we started learning from them. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.